Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
Going great. Killing it out here. Business, personal life, enjoying life again, post-pandemic, I would say. Some people will say that we're still in one, but hey, I'm making the best of it. What about you, Raphael? How's it going over there?
It's going great, man. Just keeping up with stuff. The weekend's coming up here soon, and we're just going to take advantage of the nice weather and kind of do things outside. I think that's kind of the theme going forward, although it has been a little bit hot as of late. But no, we're just excited to be able to take advantage of the nice weather. And, just speaking of great conversations and just a really interesting individual, Joe Evangelisti was our guest today. He's the CEO of Legacy Developers LLC, along with being a coach, author as well. Best-selling Amazon author as well. In today's episode, we learned a lot about his backstory. He was ultimately in the Navy as a builder for the Navy, early on in his career, and then got into the real estate space on the flipping side. And he mentioned that I think he flipped almost 1,000 homes, during that period of time, then ultimately got into the self-storage space. So throughout our discussion points, we had talked about, some of the early struggles that he faced as he's transitioned away from what he was doing on the flipping side to the development side, in particular on the self-storage end. And we kind of highlighted a few insights he gained from his first experiences on the development side with that. We also touched on, the characteristics that he looks at for an investment opportunity. He kind of shared a tidbit that we think you guys would gain value from as well. He also talked a little bit about how he's been able to help others through his coaching program and the value that he's gained through actually being affiliated with a coach. I've had a coach for many years, and I've used one in the past as well. And we kind of connected on, why we thought those, insights and the values that we've gained through our coaching relationships were so valuable to us as well. And then finally, we touched on a little bit on what inspired him to write his book and some of the values that he also gained from those experiences. As you guys may know, I've written a few books as well. So again, it's just more talk shop about why we think that it is of value to be able to write a book and the skills that you develop over time as a result of you engaging in that exercise. And then we wrapped it up finally, just asking him to provide insights on one thing he would share with his younger self that he wishes he would have known before. His answer may surprise you, so stick to the end so you can actually hear what he has to say. Jeff, do you have anything like that?
I like that he's kind of giving, especially to his team. And he was saying in the episode that he, is trying to get them to grow alongside him, because that's helping the company grow and everybody grow. And if you're surrounded by people that just continue growing, I mean, that's what's going to happen. You're just going to keep growing together, and it might be in some different ways. But anyways, he's just focusing on that with his team. And I think that is one of the keys to his success. And seems like a great guy. And I can't wait for you guys to listen to this episode.
Definitely. Yeah, no, you could tell he's a high performer, and he's a no nonsense individual, which is awesome. I love engaging with people of that level of candor. So it was really cool to be able to talk to someone and gain insights from as well. And before we dive into the podcast, obviously we greatly appreciate your guys' support. It's been humbling. And again, we always say this, it's been inspirational to see, the people that have reached out to us to talk about the episodes and how much that has meant to them and how much value they're gaining from the insights that our guests are able to share. So we greatly appreciate all your guys' support. And if you guys haven't already, we would just have one humble ask. If you guys don't mind going to Apple Podcasts and leaving a 5-star review, it really helps with our algorithm to make sure that we can reach as many people as possible. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference in our reach. And then hopefully we get to reach a broader audience so that we can share the insights of the commercial real estate industry. So again, thank you all so much. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the podcast. Well, hey, Joe, great to see you this fine afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Definitely, Joe.
So excited.
Yeah, and off the call, we were kind of mentioning you're tuning in from Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? How's everything over there?
Actually, New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, but close.
Oh, okay.
New
Oh,
Jersey,
okay.
yeah.
No, that makes sense. No, for sure. I know everything's kind of close together there. I actually lived in DC for about a year and a half, but that was my main exposure to the East Coast. Now we're kind of the middle of the country here in Louisville, Kentucky. So it's great to have you on the show. I know we're excited to kind of dive into your backstory because you do have a quite a diverse background, and I'm excited to kind of dive into to all the insights that you have to share with the audience. But typically when we first interview someone is we like to learn a little bit more about the person that's across the table from us. So if you don't mind kind of sharing your backstory, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up really in construction. My dad was a general contractor. He's actually a drywall contractor turned like house builder when I was in my teens. And so construction's just it's just been in my blood ever since I was about yay high, pushing brooms, and I think I could tape drywall when I was like 9 or 10. Yeah, so I've always loved buildings. I love the creationary aspect of like taking something from zero and turning it into something. I've even loved it when my dad was doing like kitchens and baths and all the way to building houses. And now we do it with big facilities like the one behind me on the wall here. Yeah, so construction my whole life. And then right after high school, I actually was lucky enough to go into the service, and I was in the U.S. Navy Seabees for about 6 years. And those are the construction battalions of the Navy. So I got to be a builder for the Navy. No boats, no ships, no water, just everywhere by air, fly all over the world and build really cool stuff. And, after that, pretty quickly jumped into entrepreneurship and started flipping real estate.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say that. I mean, I got a lot to commend you for on that. I appreciate your service for sure. My grandfather, he was actually a CB as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he put 30 years in that. So, I kind of grew up similar way. My family was concrete finishers, so I was on the job site, commercial and residential job sites after school and since kindergarten during the summer. That's where I went, and I hung it out at the job sites and learned all the trades from there. So, yeah. I can definitely see how you went to there, and now I'm a commercial GC. It's kind of funny. So how that actually starts out, but that's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, that you put all those years in, and now look, that it's a nice job site you got behind you. It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned your grandfather, because when I was a kid, if you asked me what my goal in life was, it would be to grow up and take over my dad's business. And about 7-8 years ago, I actually bought my dad's business to help him retire. So yeah, things come full circle. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm sure you got a lot of stories about the Navy for sure, about going on and building and all those things. So
all kinds of crazy stories. I got to serve in Camp David for 2 years. So I worked for 2 presidents. I met 5 presidents. There's a lot of cool stories. I've been all over the world and all over Asia Pacific. And I ended up my last tour was in 2003 while we were invading Baghdad. I was in U.S. Central Command right in Qatar. So I got to build out the whole infrastructure and like secure offices for Tommy Franks and all the generals that ran the war. Yeah, I got a lot of cool stories.
I bet, man, especially being around them and kind of, I guess you were catering to them essentially, right? Like kind of, doing what they needed and building what they wanted. So that's awesome. That's awesome. And for those that are listening on the podcast, he's got a nice job site photo behind him, and it's awesome. It looks like storage units. Is that what it is?
Yeah, this is one of our projects behind me. I think it's like 104,000 square foot net rentable. It's one of our projects in New Jersey we're finishing up, and it's actually pre-sold. We have a buyer to buy it when it hits CO. So pretty interesting how the market's changing and getting so aggressive. And storage, it's been aggressive for a couple of years now.
Yeah. So you were saying that you were on job sites and doing the drywall thing and everything, and I don't know if that was residential or commercial, but I kind of was wanting to see what actually got you into the commercial real estate industry. Was it that journey, or is there a particular thing that happened? Or?
Lots and lots of single family houses. We flipped about almost 1,000 houses in 12 years. And after doing that, like volume of churn and burn, like I tell people, like I never even stepped foot on the last 200 or 300 houses we flipped, because I just kind of, I don't want to say I lost a passion for it, but I was trying to find something that was more scalable, something that was more systematic, something I could have a better culture with. the single family game was just churn and burn, cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out. And I never felt like our net worth was going up or our portfolio was growing, because it was just like getting to the next deal and cashing out of it. And so after doing that for about a decade, we turned, me and my business partner looked at each other and we're like, man, what do you want to do? And we both said, we got to find something more scalable. We got to look into commercial. And, this was pre-COVID. This was about 4 years ago. And luckily enough, I say all the time, we landed on storage. We looked at retail, we looked at office, we looked at multifamily, and all of those were really at that time, and still are arguably, like a red ocean. There's just 150 LOIs going in on a deal. So I said, like, where can I find a blue ocean? Where can I create opportunity in the commercial sector? And I just landed on a conversation with a friend of mine that was building and developing self-storage. And he's like, dude, once you build your first self-storage, you'll never touch a house again. You'll pay somebody to build your own house. And he was dead on.
Definitely.
Yeah,
No.
I mean,
Yeah, and it's definitely an interesting product type, and it's one that has been fractionalized for many years, and it's starting to become a lot more institutionalized over time. But it still has very unique opportunity for those who are looking to get in the space. One thing I wanted to ask you is, the early struggles you faced as you started taking on those development projects in the self-storage space, because, just to give you a profile of our audience, I mean, we have people in a variety of different areas of the commercial real estate industry, and we've interviewed people on the multifamily side, the self-storage side, the office side, the retail side, the development side. And so we have a very broad audience that have a very diverse range of skills and backgrounds. And one obviously is the development side. So if you could kind of elaborate a little bit on your experience, especially as you first started out, because I'd imagine you can't just take the systems that you created from flipping a home and apply it straight to creating a new self-storage facility. Is that correct?
Some of them, yeah. But, I think what makes us as a team really stand out, and really my unique ability as a visionary, is creating great teams. Like, I knew that it was going to take the right people on the bus to make the first self-storage happen. And so right away, when we first figured out we're going to make the switch, I just immediately started having conversations with experienced people. And I tell you the cool thing about this industry, and we now run one of the biggest self-storage masterminds in the country. But when I started out, everyone said to me, it's a small world. People are willing to talk to you. They're willing to help. And that has been so true in the storage world. It just seems like every time I have a conversation with somebody who I haven't spoken to before, who's in storage, they're willing to give, they're willing to help, they're willing to contribute. And, to your point, Raphael, you just said it was a fragmented business. Over 70% of storage units in this country are owned by mom and pop. It's small. Like, everybody thinks you drive by CubeSmart and Extra Space and Life Storage, and they're all over, and they are, but generally 50% of those signs are owned by mom and pop, and they're using those guys to manage, right? So it is a very, very fragmented industry, which also leads to an abundance of ability for us to go capitalize on it.
Definitely. No. And then that first project, could you kind of elaborate a little bit on that? And because I think that'd be great to kind of get a case study of how exactly you looked at that opportunity and then ultimately executed.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it came from like finding the first site, right? So it's just conversational. I was actually in a conversation with one of my local civil engineers who had been doing residential surveys for me for a decade. And I said to him, like, hey, I'm looking for self-storage development opportunities. What do you got? And, he initially said to me, I got a site that's it's approved use for a senior care facility. But he actually had an agreement with the previous buyer that he would get paid at closing. Well, the previous buyer with the senior care license sold their license to the local hospital in the area. So therefore they could no longer build this facility. So they spent all this time and energy getting it approved. And he said to me, look, they owe me X amount of dollars for the contract, and we never went to closing. If you're willing to pay that difference, I'll go get this thing turned into a self-storage approval. And he did. It took us a long time because it was very, very beginning of COVID. And, actually it was like kind of COVID hit us right in the middle when we were about to get approvals, and it ended up extending it like another 6 months. But that's how we got in. That's how we got into our first deal. And then from that point, it was like, let's put the right team together, find the right development team, the right design team, the right general contractor. And, and then it was off to hiring people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that kind of brings just you saying that, like getting the right team and to doing all the investments and the opportunities. But what are some of the characteristics that you look for in that investment opportunity to develop and storage
Yeah, well,
facility.
of course, ROI, right? We got to make sure that
Yeah.
there's upside to these deals, and generally our deals are sub 60 cents on the dollar, all in, including land development, hard cost, soft cost. Like I want to be in 60 cents on the dollar if I can, which I think is one of the things that not that all developments can't be done that way, but self-storage is concrete and steel and asphalt, right? Like there's not a lot that goes into it. And it's expensive, but it's not as expensive as building like a multifamily, for example. So therefore our margins are a little fatter, which allows us to have some flexibility. Everybody's going through debt service coverage problems and then ratio problems and interest problems. And we're experiencing that as well, but we have a buffer to be able to kind of suck that up and still build a site at 60 cents on the dollar. It's not going to change us drastically.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when you mean 60 cents on the dollar, could you elaborate what that means? Is what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah. So the site that's behind me on the wall, we were all in at about 12.5 and we have it sold for 21.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're talking about your 60 cents on the dollar for the ultimate sales price when you flip it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. For the finished product, it's going to be worth about,
that makes complete sense. I just wanted to make sure that was clarified so we can have our audience understand that as well. So that's great.
Yeah. I was kind of want to just kind of go back to the characteristics and those opportunities. How do you go through? Do you guys have a screening process that you go through to look at?
Yeah.
Or is that
a lot of people ask this question. We have a system that we call the 60-60-23, right? Which is, and this is like a swag. This is how you start to underwrite a deal. And then you got to get into nuts and bolts of it. But if I'm looking at a piece of dirt, I'm looking for 60,000 median income in a 3-mile radius. I'm looking for 60,000 population in a 3-mile radius. And I'm looking for average $20 per square foot is what's being rented in a 10 by 10 climate control for my competitors, right? So that's why we come up with 60-60-20 in a 3-mile radius, right? So that's like the starting point when we can decide like, hey, this is a site we should really investigate further. And then, of course, there's months of due diligence that goes into pre-design and figuring out if the site physically fits properly, underground retainage, environmental, the turtles, the dogs, the frogs, all the things that you have to look at. So, I mean, but the very, very early stages is what we call the 60-60-23.
Oh, okay. Nice.
That's
I
awesome.
appreciate you letting us know that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's always good because I mean, I'd imagine as you start to scale and expand your team. I mean, you're probably seeing a lot of opportunities coming your way, and a lot of them I'm sure probably aren't worth looking at. In this investment market, I feel like there's a lot of people that are pricing, product in a way such that it's like they're pricing in the profit that someone else would achieve once they ultimately develop and sell the property, which is crazy, but that's just currently the environment you find yourselves in for the most part. But then, of course, there's opportunities out there, like you said, that you can capitalize on through those metrics. So,
yeah, I mean, you had said earlier, what did we take over from the residential world, and really one of our really value adds to what we create is for a decade, I was finding off-market deals direct to seller. Like that was our sweet spot. It was finding stuff that nobody else is looking for and creating opportunity out of it and either buying it or wholesaling it to another investor. We took that same kind of, investigative model of how to find deals and actually put them under contract so that, again, I could be in that blue ocean, right? I don't want to be in the red ocean where all the sharks are feeding and having a frenzy and there's multiple offers and best in finals. I actually just had this conversation with my team this morning. I don't think we've ever been in a best in final situation. like we generally are dealing with off-market stuff. We're going direct to brokers who are going direct to the sellers, or we're having conversations and we're finding off-market stuff. So I'm not in that competitive nature of like, oh, it's on CoStar, let's go put an offer out there.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. So one thing I wanted to ask you about, and obviously you have a very diverse background. You obviously came from the military, got into development, but also you have a very strong focus on coaching, and coaching, is something that I've had a coach for many, many years. I see the value in coaching, and I kind of wanted to understand, what was your reasoning for, number one, when you first, I'm assuming you've had a coach for many years as well. So what made you decide to get a coach? What value you receive from coaching? And then ultimately, what made you decide to start that in your own, I guess, start coaching other people as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually started out probably over 10 years ago. My first like sizable investment, which is kind of like you look back and laugh. Some people don't think that's funny, but it was $5,000 to go to a two-day mastermind event. And like, it took all of the energy in my body to send that wire, to like send that money to somebody. But it was immediate to me the importance and the magnitude of getting in the right rooms. Like I figured it out within like an hour of sitting down, like, holy crap, this is what I've been missing my whole life. I need to be in the right room with the right people that aren't going to be in my backyard. They're not going to be the people I went to high school with. It's not going to be my cousins or my parents or my, it's going to be people who want to help me succeed at a higher level because I want to help them succeed at a higher level. So I invested in my first mastermind about 10 years ago and almost immediately hired coaches after that. And I say there's the best investments you can make. Number one are in yourself, and number two are in your people. That's it. Everything else, comes after that. And so, to this day, I practice what I preach. I probably have 5 different coaches at this point for different things, all the way from my business coach to my life coach to my jiu-jitsu coach. Like, I have coaches in my life, but that's how peak performers achieve things. You look at Tom Brady, he's got 16 coaches. You look at some of the peak performers in the world, and they're not just hiring a coach. They're hiring multiple coaches, and they're investing in themselves as much as they're investing in to get to the end game to their success, whatever that is.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And, similar to you, I mean, I haven't had a coach as long as you. I started back in 2016 was the first time I started with a coach. And, I mean, the value that I've received from the relationships, and I've had several coaches since then, obviously you evolve and, maybe this coach no longer serves as the same that you need. And then you ultimately go to someone else. But, what I've valued so much from the relationship that I've had with my coach over the years is that just the candor of just looking at your life or whatever focus area that you're looking at and saying, okay, like what are areas for improvement? Because it's very easy for us to look at ourselves in rose-colored glasses, and as best as we possibly can do, we try to definitely not do that, but it's only natural. I mean, ego can get in the way and whatever else, but with the coaches that I've had over my lifetime, they've been very good at making me step back and say, okay, this is what you've told me you want. What's the hurdle? How are we going to get over this? And then from there, you ultimately execute. And that's ultimately your decision. And you have to be the one to execute as the individual. So,
yeah, well, listen, action creates momentum, right? And our thoughts become things. So I want to surround myself with people that make me think bigger. They make me think bigger thoughts. They make me challenge myself. They make me go out there and do. And so, coaches do that. Mastermind rooms do that. I mean, getting away sometimes and just, I did a mastermind retreat in Vail, Colorado at the end of March this year. We didn't even talk business the whole time, right? We were out there snowmobiling, we were snowboarding, skiing, dinners, whatever. And everyone said to me at the end, this is the greatest mastermind I've ever been to, right? A lot of times just getting around other people that get you thinking outside the box is worth the investment tenfold.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Completely. I haven't personally had a coach, but I've had a couple mentors over the years, and I mean, same thing, I guess. And I can see the value of definitely actually, and on one point I want to point out is actually paying for a coach rather than just having a coach that is saying that they're going to coach you. The value that you're going to put into that is way higher. So that's thanks for that. I mean, that's a lot. So I know you have been doing a lot of different things, and one was actually writing a book. You wrote a book, right? And what made you decide to write a book? And then, go
ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your question.
No, I was just like, and what is the premise and like the top lessons that you learned? If you could just while writing that book,
The book thing for me started as, first of all, let me backtrack. People think writing a book makes you money. It doesn't. Like, it's not a profitable thing. It's more of a, I started writing books, to answer your question, to help my team and my students. Like, but literally my first book was about flipping houses, and it was an SOP on how to create opportunity and do more deals. And so as people came to work for me, like their first job was to read this book, right? Yeah. So it's really how all of my books have kind of come into substance, was like, what is my team, or what are my coaching clients? What do the people in my tribe need to be successful? Let me get it down in like a manifesto. And that's kind of how they've all, matriculated. First, it was flipping houses. Then it was wholesaling houses. I wrote a book called Wholesaling. And then it was leadership development and the 5 freedoms, which is in multiplicity. And then our latest book, which is called the Legacy Wealth Blueprint, is about creating passive investment wealth through self-storage. So it's always been to help the people in my tribe. It's not been to hit the New York Times bestseller list. It was, always been to how do I help increase the knowledge bank of the people who are around me.
Definitely. Yeah, no, go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I commend you for that. That's awesome that you're willing to do that, because it's what's that the saying about, uh, one big tide, or something about raising ships. I can't remember exactly how it goes,
Yeah,
but
the high tide raises all ships. Yeah.
ships,
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, if you're going to help your team grow, you're going to grow along with them, and vice versa. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've also written a few books as well. And, the process of doing so, it's an iterative process. And there's also and as you said before, you're not going to necessarily become the next J.K. Rowling, but there's so much value in the act of writing that ultimately spreads to a variety of different facets within your business. Like for me, I become a much more effective communicator. I become, obviously you go out and you talk about what you have written about as well. So the public speaking aspect comes into play, by you writing books that are, hopefully focused on a nonfiction basis, whether it's leadership, financial freedom, et cetera, you inherently learn more about that. And then ultimately you can pass along that knowledge to your growing team. And so I love those insights that you shared, because again, you may, just because you're not going to become the next J.K. Rowling, and maybe you will be, but in reality, that's not why you write. In my opinion, the reason you write is for the exercise of writing and to become better in a variety of different ways. So,
well, I mean, to touch on what you just said, though, Raphael, is like, our highest level of human needs are growth and contribution, right? That's us getting to a higher level and then giving back. When you can start to put that into writing, you're answering a lot of your own questions. It's like journaling, right? There's so much inside of our subconscious that we've already answered. And it's like, I got to get it on paper. Then I get it on paper and I think to myself, well, how are Jeff and Raphael going to take this and matriculate this information? And like, if I was in a conversation, how could I teach them this? That makes us better, right? The more we coach,
100%.
the more we lead, the more we grow our team, the more we give back to them, like the more we get better as leaders. So, the book experience is really kind of a summation of that whole thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure you've probably had a similar experience where you're looking and writing a particular section and you're sitting there and you're like, how can I best elaborate this so someone can actually understand this to a degree that I want them to? Because again, there's maybe some concepts that you elaborate on that are a little bit more complicated or whatever else, but that refinement process makes you more effective communicator. And communication is the number one skill, in my opinion, in business. I mean, if you're an effective and a killer communicator, the sky's the limit. So
I think the way books are going today, the more simple the concept, the easier it is to understand. Ed Milet just wrote the book called One Extra Rep, or I don't know. It's like another, but the whole concept is just giving one more. You're going to do 9 reps, do 10. You're going to make 10 phone calls, do 12. Like going that one extra step is really what creates success. And it's so basic, but I mean, that book will definitely be in the New York Times bestseller.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, you just do 1 extra rep per day. That's 365 a year. It all compounds. And the exponential growth that occurs, because if you start today doing the extra rep, if 4 years later, your competitors decide, oh, wow, like maybe I should start doing that, you're already so far ahead. There's no competition. You're not going to be able to catch up. So
the consistency of which we do these things is really what makes us. I was listening to an interview the other day and they were talking about Kobe Bryant's workout routine. And like most of the NBA does it 2 a day, right? They do 10 a.m. and they do 4 p.m. Kobe used to get in the gym at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
He would do his first workout at 3 a.m., his second at 10, his third at 4. And people would go, I'd be getting my first workout done when people were waking up. And that's what made him better.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, Kobe is just an impressive individual. He's someone that I've always admired. And unfortunately he's not with us anymore, but to this day, you can learn a lot of lessons from his teachings and just how he's interacted with the world. So, one thing we like to ask, is obviously you've had a wealth of experience over the course of your career. But if you could go back in time, back to your early days, right when you're first getting started, you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and you're ready to take on the world. What is one piece of advice that you think would be most impactful that you could share with yourself so that you could maybe avoid some of the pitfalls you ultimately were able to navigate when you first started? So,
you're probably not going to like this answer because someone asked me this question like a month ago. And my answer was this, like, you couldn't tell that kid shit. Right?
Yeah.
Like
I get it.
Back when I was that age, like there's nothing anybody could have told me that would have changed the outcome. However, I believe that everything happens at the time and at the right moment and when it's supposed to happen. And I wouldn't be the leader, decision maker, earner, producer, a developer. I wouldn't be all the book writer, all these things if I didn't fail at every one of these things along the way, right? And get better and better and better.
Yeah.
So I think that the only thing that I could even advise that is just, you don't fail until you stop, right? You got to keep going no matter what. And there's going to be great times and there's going to be really crappy times, but as long as you don't give up, you end up where you want to be.
Absolutely. And developing thick skin in life in general is just a huge value proposition. I mean, again, going through the struggles and understanding how to navigate the murky waters. I mean, that's also a valuable skill.
We could go down a rabbit hole of why our kids are so messed up in today's generation if you want. But I mean, I think we all know the answer to that, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
My 9-year-old plays soccer and doesn't keep score. Like there's got to be a point in time where that thick skin gets developed, and it comes from adversity. And if our kids are not seeing adversity because we're trying to hen over top of them and make sure that everything's okay and it's going to be okay, baby. Like it's not going to be okay. Shit happens. It's going to get tough. It's going to get tougher before it gets easier. I think that's more of what our kids need to hear today than, oh, there's no winners and losers. There are winners and losers. I'm a winner. I had to make a lot of losers happen to become a winner.
Yeah, no. Oh, for
the
sure.
nature of life.
Oh, absolutely. And you refer to sports in general. I mean, I learned a lot of these lessons through the sports that I played. I wrestled in high school and played football, and that adversity in and of itself taught me a lot of lessons. And ultimately the entrepreneur route, in my opinion, is the biggest gauntlet. And the biggest life lessons you learn are through just going through these ups and downs and struggles of just operating a business. And so, I don't know. I feel like there's so many lessons to learn, but you have to put yourself out there, and you got to be willing to, get scuffed up a bit. So,
well, and I think the added bonus to that is, like I just said, it's becoming a winner. You create a lot of losers. I've also created a lot of winners.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to set the bar at some point, like Andy Frisella has this hashtag 100 to 0. He's like, I want to win 100 to 0. I don't care. Or maybe it's 0 to 100. It's the same concept, but he's like, I'm not trying to beat my competition. I'm trying to decimate them. And then the winners come to him because of that vision, because of that outcome, because of that output. And so when you set the bar, all of a sudden you attract winners into your life.
Absolutely. And I mean, ultimately, like you said, in order for you to win a lot of times, you need people to help you along the way. And ultimately you help them as well. I mean, it's a mutually beneficial relationship as well. So, even though you may view yourself as the winner, the executor, you helped a lot of people as well. I mean, that's ultimately a value proposition. So,
I mean, our company is called Legacy Developers. The reason we called it that was because we want to build everyone's legacy. Every person in my company either has a bonus structure based on deal flow or they have equity in the deal. Like I want to build long-term wealth for everyone on my team, right? So therefore, like we can't lose. Like we're surrounding ourselves with winners who just keep winning at a higher level every time we do a deal. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Awesome.
Hey, I know that I've heard the saying over and over is that mistakes create growth. And that's when you were alluding to earlier is like kids nowadays aren't in that. They're not getting that. So they're not able to grow. I mean, you're going to have, I say in another 20 years, a 5-year-old, if they don't have any of that growth, they're still going to be in a kid's mindset, essentially. I mean, they're going to be looking for their parents. Hey, I need your help.
I'm terrified. I'm terrified of getting old, guys, because I don't know who's going to defend us.
Well, and I think part of the reason is like, I remember someone said this and I thought it was very insightful is that, bad times create tough people and they create good times, and then good times create soft people and then the bad times come. So it's like a cyclical cycle. I mean, you see it in any type of enterprise and industry. I mean, look at all the Fortune 500 companies on average over the course of 25 years, you'll see 50% or more drop off of that list. And a lot of the reasons for that is because they get fat and happy. And they get complacent and they get soft. And all of a sudden there's always someone behind you wanting to take you out. We're in a competitive environment, and you got to be able to work yourself, work towards it and always continue to strive to be the best you can be. So.
Well, that's a Jordan Peterson quote. And he also says something along the lines of like, kids need to be able to do dangerous things in supervised environments or something like that. Like your kids need to go explore. They need to get dinged up. They need to scrape their knee. They need to cry every once in a while. Like that's part of life, and you see these weak kids being grown up because everything's coddled. Everything's covered up. Everything's okay. We got a medication for that. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So earlier you actually alluded to a few books that you were reading and recommended and stuff. So I just wanted to start out saying, before I really go into this other question, is, hey, we really appreciate you coming on here and taking the time. We know that you're busy, very, very busy. So the time that you've given us is invaluable. But so the next question is what is the most impactful book that you've ever read? Is maybe, and it doesn't have to be in construction, or it can be any book. Yeah, any genre.
So for me, as someone asked, I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago and they said something about books, like what's your like highest recommended book? I think books to me have to happen at the right time. Right? How many times have you had a book sit in your shelf and then like 2 years later, you're like, I'm gonna cut, and you crack it open and you're like, man, this is incredible. Why didn't I read this 2 years ago? Well, because it wasn't interesting and it wasn't impactful to you 2 years ago. So to answer your question, one of the most impactful books for me ever was The 4-Hour Workweek. And it's because I read it in 2007 when I was literally going to step out and create my entrepreneurial journey. And he's talking about how you can leverage virtual assistants and you can leverage people to help you do business. And literally when I started my business, it was me and one other person in the US. And I had like 3 virtual assistants because of that book. And it helped me, scale up in order to leverage, the opportunity of $3-4 an hour labor, whatever it was back then. Way different now, by the way. Try to find a $3 an hour VA. But the point is, I think books have to hit you at the right time. And I've read some amazing books that have hit me really, really hard. But that was the first like really meaningful, impactful book I remember reading.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I just recently hired a VA about 6 months ago. So I've seen the impact and power that it can have. And she's taken over a lot of the functions of this podcast. And we're going to be episode 75, I believe, is this one, or it's in the 70s range. And, with over the last 30 or so, it's been, primarily her efforts and, the time you get back. And I'm obviously in the brokerage business. So, my time is better suited in a variety of different facets that are outside of what this is, this podcast. But the operational side now I've been able to pass along to another person who does a great job with the podcast. And that's saved me a significant amount of time. And I kind of alluded to your point about those books hitting you at the right time. I mean, I can name a few books over the course of my career that, at that moment in time, I'm just like, wow, it just made that aha moment for me. The first one that I read was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And it was just, and that I read it when I was 23 years old. And that's what enabled me to do all the things that I've been able to do in life, because I realized that all it takes is those small, consistent positive actions. But the key word is consistent. You can't just burst it out for 2 weeks and then not do it anymore. You got to get into a habit of doing things on a regular basis. That's why your morning routines are extremely important. Bookending your days in the evening, revising what you did for the day, and then ultimately determining what the best path forward is based on the stimuli that you've interacted with throughout the day. So, again, it's just great. So, well, Joe, we greatly appreciate your time. I think it's been awesome to be able to have a conversation with you and learn more about your story. I know our audience got a lot of value from the discussion. One thing we like to do near the end of our podcast is we like to ask our guests to contribute something to what we call the commercial real estate treasure chest. It's a repository of resources that we make available to our audience. And, we've had people contribute helpful PDFs, ebooks, really anything that you think would be of value to the audience. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask, what are you willing to contribute today?
Yeah. So actually, I'm glad you asked that earlier, because we have a masterclass, a self-storage development masterclass I developed for our mastermind at the beginning of last year. And we actually offer that to your listeners for free if they text 856-481-7795. It's 856-481-7795. Text the word storage to that number, and we send you guys a free masterclass. No strings, no follow-up feedback. We're not trying to, we'll just send you the masterclass direct, and you guys can watch it for free.
That's awesome. No, and we'll go ahead and include those instructions in the description. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description. If you guys are listening to this in a podcast format, it'll be in the description as well. So,
Joe, I've gained a ton of value. I know people are going to want to reach out to you. So what is the best way to tell them to reach out to you? Email, text, phone, carrier pigeon. I'm not sure what you got going on over there, but
I'm on all the socials, as they say, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. They can search my last name. It's very, very unique. So it's not going to be hard finding me. Evangelisti. And our website for the development side is investwithlegacy.com if they want to check out our projects or upcoming deals.
Awesome.
Nice.
Great. So we'll include that in the show notes below as well. So if you guys don't want to check them out, go ahead and do that. We'll provide LinkedIn and all the other social media platforms below so you guys can access that. So Again, for those of you guys who are listening, we greatly appreciate all your guys' support. if you guys don't mind taking a second to leave us a 5-star review, we've seen a significant uptick in our downloads as a result of you guys doing so. So feel free to stop by Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate if you can like and subscribe to this channel. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and ensures more and more people can hear this message and learn about the many facets of commercial real estate. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.